Today we're going to be talking about my sun sign, which is going to be the sign of Aries, but we're going to be talking about it, not just talking about the sun signs, we're going to be talking about everything to do with the sign of Aries, so let's get into it. I am Dave, the Amateur Magus. On this channel I talk all about the mechanics behind ceremonial magic, occultism, esotericism, and the mechanics behind everything you can find within a dusty old grimoire. On today's episode we will be talking about the sign of Aries. If you like my content, please share this video out with people you think might enjoy it and subscribe. And if you really want to enjoy my content, go down to the Patreon link in the description below and subscribe to the Patreon down below, where you get exclusive access to Patreon exclusive videos almost every week, and the Occultic Manual series, which is a monthly write-up about a particular occult topic, which is usually more advanced than the stuff I cover here on YouTube. So, back to the video. Let's talk about the sign of Aries. The sign of Aries is the Ram. It is the first. Aries is the sign of beginnings, starting things, competition, and generally the sign of Aries is the impulsive sign. If you need to start a spark and set the world on fire, Aries is that spark. Now, I am of course talking about the sign of Aries as a whole. That being said, the sun sign of Aries will take on a lot of these traits, and if any particular planet in the Zodiac is going through the sign of Aries, they will take on this trait. Because the planetary powers of astrology are the powers, and they are filtered through the lens of the signs of the Zodiac. This is how it works, this is just kind of how everything works, and this is how it's always worked. But, when I'm talking about the sign of Aries at the moment, I want you to know that the sign of Aries is going to be very much all about speed, initiation, competition, and it's going to be rude, and it's going to have a childlike wonder. Now, the reason why the sign of Aries is so important is because it's the first. It is the first sign of the Zodiac. Everything that happens in the Zodiac happened first to Aries. The first thing that happened in the Zodiac was it came into existence, and the first Zodiac sign that came into existence was Aries. And I'm going to stop saying first, because if I do, it's going to stop losing all of its meaning. Now, the thing about the sign of Aries is that the sign of Aries gets bored quite easily. The sign of Aries is not a commitment sign, it is not fixed fire, it is cardinal fire. And the cardinal signs are the beginnings of each element, and Aries is no exception. Aries is the spark to Leo's roaring flame, to the embers of Sagittarius. But it is that initial spark that gets the flame going and causes the big explosion. The big explosion is Aries. And you could make an allusion to the Big Bang here, but I'm not going to bother appealing to science and something that we really don't need to. The sign of Aries gets along positively with all of the fire signs and all of the air signs, with the exception of its opposite in Libra. Now, Aries and Libra are on the selfishness versus selflessness polarity on the Zodiac. The sign of Aries is going to be all about I am the hero, me, I'm the guy, it's me, I'm the guy, I'm gonna do something. And Libra is all about balancing and harmony, diplomacy, that kind of thing. Now, it's an interesting thing to note that Aries is actually quite childish and Libra is actually very mature. But the thing about it is that Aries is not intentionally rude, it just doesn't have the discipline and it doesn't have the manners. It did not have to learn all of these things because Aries, when it starts doing something, only does it for a short amount of time. And when it starts to do those things, it moves on, right? First thing that Aries did was begin things. Second thing Aries did was begin other things. Third thing Aries did was it went and got bored and did something else. That's the entire sign of the Aries in a nutshell. And this is going to be quite useful for magic. If you need something to start, but you don't have any idea how you're going to get it started, or you know you want it to get started but you're experiencing some resistance, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to use the sign of Aries, particularly if it has either the Sun or Mars in it. Now, if the Sun is transiting Aries, that is a good thing for the sun, because the sun loves being in Aries. It is actually in exaltation, and for those of you who need a refresher on that, planetary powers are either in affinity with something or they are opposed to that particular energy of the sign. Now, when the sun is in Aries, it is in exaltation, which is said to be the best place for the planet, traditionally speaking. And when the planet of the sun is in Aries, this means that the sun can start doing all of the adventurous, wonderful hero work that it wants to do. And this is why you will usually see people with the sun sign in Aries going around and doing a bunch of new things all the time. Because they get bored very easily, and they want that spirit of adventure, and they want that interestingness. They want that stuff that will keep their attention, because it's very hard to keep the attention of an Aries, because it's kind of hard to wrangle in an explosion. Which is where we get to the planet of Mars. Mars is the ruling planet of Aries, and therefore it is in domicile in the sign of Aries. Now, Mars is going to be different from Mars is going to be a little bit different from the sun. While the sun wants to do all of the things that are going to make it look good, and it starts doing all the, it does that because it's bored, the sign of Aries with Mars is going to be hyper-competitive. The sign of Aries is going to be expressing that competition and that competitive spirit of Mars. Because the thing about Aries is that while Aries is the first, it wants to win. And this leads to an interesting situation where Aries is going to be the sign of competition. Mars is going to be a competitive planet. It is the planet of competition, so that is exemplified. It's not the hero like the sun is, it is the warrior. So when the sun is in Aries, the sun is being, I'm the hero, look at me. It's that childhood innocent hero, or if you've seen Power Rangers, it's the classic Red Ranger. But when Mars is in Aries, it is the warlord. It is the strong warlord who is carving the warpath, and it's more of a Genghis Khan situation. Now, I mentioned before how Libra is the opposite sign to Aries, and how Aries is actually quite immature, and that's because it's the baby of the Zodiac. It's because it is the baby sign. Aries does not have the other Zodiac signs around it to help with its development, so it just never learned how to talk to people. Which leads to it being in opposition to Libra, but also square with the signs of Cancer and Capricorn, who are the other two cardinal signs. Aries is quite rude, and it can actually hurt the emotions and the feelings of Cancer quite often. And Aries and Capricorn have a relationship that is best explained as being a match made in hell. Because Aries wants to be first, and Capricorn wants to achieve things. And we put great emphasis on the world first achievement, which is why they're constantly fighting with each other, because the Capricorn wants to achieve everything, and the Aries wants to be the first. There's a little bit more to that explanation, but we'll probably get into that during the Capricorn video. Now, the other signs that Aries gets along fondly with are going to be its other fire signs, which are going to be Leo and Sagittarius. That's because all of the same corresponding element, and that means that they're going to be complementary to the sign of Aries. The other two signs that it is complementary to is going to be the signs of Gemini and Aquarius, which feed that very strange ideas into Aries and get it to start new and more interesting ideas. That is one of the ways you can look at the relationship between Gemini, Aquarius, and Aries, because Gemini and Aquarius are both complementary to each other. Which leaves us with the sign of Libra. Libra is going to be the diplomat of the Zodiac. They're going to be trying to get everyone to behave, and they're going to be trying to make all the laws, and they're going to establish everything. Aries doesn't care. Rules did not exist when Aries started doing everything, and it thinks that rules are stupid. And quite frankly, sometimes it's right. But rules are made for a reason. They're made so that everyone is having a good time. And Aries doesn't care about other people's good time. Aries is the sign of the self. Aries is the sign of, it is a selfish sign, but it's not a greedy sign. It only thinks of itself because it is very simple-minded. And when I say it's simple-minded, I mean that whatever Aries wants to do, it does. You can't really talk an Aries out of doing something if they've already made up their mind, because they're halfway through doing it already. Which is where the other signs have a tendency of having problems reeling the sign of Aries in. That being said, there's 4 other zodiac signs we haven't talked about in its relationship with Aries. So let's go through the signs of Taurus, Pisces, Virgo, and Scorpio, shall we? Starting with the 2 signs closest to Aries of Taurus and Pisces. You will never see a major aspect to these, but they are right next to each other, so of course they're going to have something to say about their neighbor. The sign of Taurus is the enduring, I don't want to move zodiac sign, and it doesn't exactly fully understand Aries' gotta go right now spirit. Likewise, the sign of Pisces is the sign of endings, and it does not understand, or it does not want to understand, the beginning and the initiation methodology of the sign of beginnings. It wants to end things, and it is the sign of endings. It wants to go to sleep, and it does not want to wake up. Aries is the sign of waking up, effectively, so it doesn't exactly have the same energy. Now, Virgo and Scorpio are going to be a healthy distance away from the sign of Aries. They're going to be right next to their main girl, Libra. However, Virgo is going to be a very interesting... Virgo is interesting. The way Virgo interplays with Aries is that Virgo does not try to stop the sign of Aries. Virgo course corrects the sign of Aries. Virgo uses the sign of Aries like the sign of Aries is a tool for what the sign of Virgo is trying to do, and they steer them in the right direction very, very carefully and very slowly. Virgos are going to direct the sign of Aries very similarly to the signs of Gemini and Aquarius. However, they're going to be doing it in a way where the sign of Aries isn't doing exactly what they wanted to do, but they're not completely angry enough to complain. Meanwhile, you have Scorpio, which is the fellow Mars sign. It is going to be the sign that is also ruled by the planetary power of Mars, and the sign of Scorpio and the sign of Aries are interesting because these are basically the feminine and the masculine aspects of Mars, and the other aspect of Mars has a lot to say about their fellow martial aspect. Now, the thing about Mars and Scorpio is that Mars and Scorpio are going to be... Scorpio is going to be in a more lustful relationship with Aries, and it's going to be behind closed doors and no one's really going to care. That is what the sign of Aries is going to do with the sign of Scorpio. Either that or extreme warfare. There really is no kind of combination more powerful and destructive than an angry Aries pairing up with an angry Scorpio, because suddenly the reason why the Aries is committed, and remember, the sign of Aries is competition and violence, destruction, and all kinds of, headbutting things, is the sign of Aries. It's not exactly an enduring sign, except when you pour the gasoline of Scorpio into the equation, and now suddenly Aries doesn't stop, and you have the sign of Scorpio using Aries as a weapon, which is an absolutely terrifying combination. So, how can we use the sign of Aries in our magic? Well, at the time of recording, it is very closely approaching the first of the year, and the first of the year and when the sun enters Aries are both days that are very, very important, because we can use these to create initiation rituals. And by initiation rituals, I don't mean like the standard initiation we usually talk about on the channel. I mean, if we want things to begin, that is when we can cast for them, and they will start better. If you're having problems beginning things, you use the sign of Aries for it, and that's what we do it use it for in Magic other than competition, but that's not what I talk about here on this channel because, you know, that's not the kind of thing we do here. So, that being said, I am Dave the Amateur Magus. I hope you guys learned something on this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope y'all are having a good day. If you're not having a good day, hope day gets better. Take care.